my name is Danielle Stewart, and I'm a PhD student at Texas Tech University, and I am in Dr. Zimmerman's class for Intro Data Model Inquiry. And today I'm going to talk about my research that I have been doing on teacher preparation efficacy. So, in order to do this research, I used the TALIS survey data, and I analyzed how does formal teacher preparation training and classroom practice affect teachers' feelings of preparedness within the classroom. I wanted to specifically know how that classroom practice affects the preparedness of teachers, not just that they have a theory or that they've learned something in a book, but actually how that internship or those classroom practices affect their overall preparedness when they go out into the field to actually do the teaching with the students. So here in Arkansas, especially in the Russellville, Arkansas area, we have several different variations for teacher education preparedness training programs. Some of those include, of course, your internship, your teacher practicum. We also have an ESL Academy because I'm an ESL coordinator. I was specifically concerned with the background of how an ESL Academy or how teacher preparation programs like the ESL Academy could affect their teaching when they go into the classroom with those ESL students. There's also a couple colleges around us, a couple universities. Arkansas Tech has a Center for Leadership and Learning where they have an additional licensure program where you can get your master's at the same time you're getting your license if you didn't go through the traditional College of Education. Arkansas Tech University also has an MAT program that has a similar track. In Arkansas, we have the University of Central Arkansas, which also has a College of Education and similar non-traditional licensure tracks. And then also, through the state of Arkansas, we have the APPLE program. It's Arkansas Professional Pathway to Educator Licensure. This is a way to get your licensure through the state. So while I'm looking at this TALIS survey and the data, I am interested in eventually transferring this knowledge and this research to be able to do a similar study within my state to see if specifically the ESL Academy that's put on by some of the local universities actually does affect my teachers in being prepared when they have those ESL students within their classroom. Currently at my school district, we have over 900 ESL students, and that's out of 5,000 enrollment for K through 12, so we are definitely growing in that realm. But back to the research that I did from the TALIS survey. The null hypothesis would be there is no statistical difference between formal training and the teacher's feelings of being prepared. Thus, teachers do not need formal training in order to feel prepared. But that alternative hypothesis would definitely be there is a statistical difference between formal training and the teacher's feelings of being prepared. Thus, teachers need formal training in order to feel prepared. So I wanted to look at the TALIS data to see if which one it was, if it was the null hypothesis or the alternate or alternative hypothesis. So before I got started, I did some literature review. I read some journal articles. Two that really piqued my interest, especially with teacher preparedness, was a variation in teacher preparation. How well do different pathways prepare teachers to teach? Here I have that information on that article and how to find that. But basically that journal article, within that, they determined that certified teachers feel better prepared than non-certified teachers, which is interesting because I just shared with you all of the different pathways to teacher certification within the state of Arkansas. Also, they found that teachers started their careers, the ones that did start their careers via non-traditional licensure programs or emergency credentials, felt significantly less prepared. I think you'll see through this research data why that is. I think specifically it's because those non-traditional licensure programs and emergency credentials weren't provided the opportunity to do an internship or a practicum. This topic the background is very dear to me because I, 15 years ago, started as a non-traditional licensure teacher, teaching Spanish and foreign language. And so, another journal article that I did for my literature review was teacher preparation and student achievement, how that affects it. This study proves that a variation of methods is important for a well-rounded, prepared teacher in the career. It's not just enough to have an internship. You need lots of different training and lots of different avenues to get that training. And as you will see here in my theoretical framework, I developed this cycle that I really feel is necessary for teachers to continue to be those lifelong learners. In order for the teacher's feeling of preparedness and to continue, the teacher must continually move through this cycle that I have created, learning new strategies, applying them, and repeating them. If you'll notice in the chart, like classroom practice is part, then you go into feeling of preparedness, but then you also need, as your educational journey continues, more professional development, more trainings, but then that professional development is not adequate and not helpful unless you go back and put it into classroom practice. And then you feel prepared, and the cycle continues. That's part of the beauty of being a lifelong learner and always keeping and honing your craft of teaching and education. So how did I do this research? My research method will be quantitative inquiry and the use of the TALIS survey data, as I previously mentioned. This survey provides teacher answers from a questionnaire. So the data was gathered through a survey, and then the analysis was conducted through the SPSS Citrix. The questions chosen to analyze are listed now. Here are the TALIS questions that I chose. Question 12, were the following elements included in your formal training? So for this, I decided to use the data from the following category: classroom practice, like I had discussed earlier, the practicum, the internship, the student teaching. How did that affect it? For this, the teachers were able to choose yes for all subjects, or yes for some, or no. This type of data gained from this question would fall under the nominal or the categorical data, which would make it qualitative. This would serve as my independent variable in my research. Another question that I chose from the TALIS survey is question number 13. In your teaching, to what extent do you feel prepared in the elements below? Content, pedagogy, classroom practice. So for this, I decided to use the data from the following category: classroom practice in the subjects that I teach. For these three questions, teachers were able to choose not at all, somewhat, well, or very well. The type of data gained from this question would fall under the categorical data, that says date. The answers would range from those choices listed above, like not at all, to very well. So we're looking at a realm of a scale of they do not feel prepared to kind of prepared to super well prepared. So the question is, I wanted to see if there was any correlation between the formal training teachers received in classroom practices, whether it was student teaching, internship, or practicum, and how prepared they felt in that element of teaching once they got their actual students in their own classroom. So here's where I started running the data. This is an independent samples t-test. You notice it has all of the numbers. The standard deviation is 0.704. I used the independent samples t-test to see if there was a statistically significant difference when a teacher has formal training in the elements of teaching and also their feelings of being prepared. The data returned show that the p-value is less than 0.05. We've talked about the standard deviation. And also, the standard error mean, which was 0.007. So therefore, since that p-value is less than 0.05, I'm going to reject the null hypothesis that there is no statistical difference between receiving formal training and feeling prepared to teach concerning classroom practices. In the one-way ANOVA, I ran a one-way ANOVA to test to emphasize my data in the independent samples test. I deduct from looking at the data that it does correlate with the independent samples test because the p-value is less than 0.05. You see the significance is 0.000. So I conclude that some of the group means are different, but it doesn't really detail which ones. Here's my box plot of my data. It compares background prepared for elements in teaching, classroom practice in the subjects that I teach. And you can see where that is plotted. So for the frequency distribution of the questions that I chose, it shows that most teachers feel well or very well prepared in the elements of classroom practice. In fact, the highest percentage in the frequency test, 45.9, fell within the well-prepared category. So that was very important data to show that they do actually feel from either well or very well prepared. You see it goes up from somewhat at 11.4 all the way to 45.9 in the well prepared. So for me, that means that I'm going to reject the null hypothesis and adopt the alternate or alternative hypothesis. Because the p-value is less than 0.05, there is a statistical difference between receiving formal training and feeling prepared to teach concerning classroom practices. So there is a statistical difference between formal training and the teacher's feelings of being prepared. Thus, and here is my very profound finding, which I did think that it would lend this way. Teachers need formal training in order to feel prepared. I think one of my biggest takeaways, here are my references, but I would like to continue this study to see not only that they do say that the study finds that they do need the teacher preparation, the actual practicum, the internships, but I would be interested also in finding which ones are more effective, and also specifically, like I mentioned in the beginning, within my own state for the ESL, is the ESL Academy that's offered at a university level as effective for classroom teachers' preparedness as compared to just ESL PD that they get within their district. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation and learned some about teacher preparedness and efficacy.